So let's start with the basic house rules that I wanted to share. So we have this amazing webinar here, and it's been quite a lot of work. And I know that many of you are facing some technical glitches, but don't worry, we'll get here. So welcome you all for this webinar. So before we start, there are a couple of logistic information that I would like to share. Since it's a webinar, as you might have already seen, there is a Q&A session here below. So whenever you have any doubts or suggestions or thoughts, please make sure that you type in your comments and questions over there. And we also have interpretations available in 3 languages, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. So please switch to your channel of comfort. So yes, with that, let's start the ball rolling. So let me give you a brief context of the webinar. So as you all know, the adoption of the SSF guidelines have been a landmark victory for small-scale fishers all over the globe, with this huge consultation process. And the SSF guidelines marked the need to take into account the social, cultural, and economic context of small-scale fishing communities to ensure sustainable and climate-resilient small-scale fisheries. And as a way of augmenting the implementation process of the SSF guidelines, small-scale fishers representatives and support organizations came together in the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon in 2022 and drafted the small-scale fisheries call to action. So the rules of conduct was developed as a support document to this SSF call to action, with a set of guidelines in a context of collaborative works happening between SSF organizations and other NGOs who wish to work with small-scale fisheries in the context of coastal and marine conservation. And years after, if you have already attended the Coffee and the SSF Summit last couple of months back in July in Rome, so you might have listened to multiple calls on meaningful and respectful collaboration. So one of the SSF representatives stated that what we need is what we need are weapons of mass collaborations. So, however, but there were also discussions on the ways in which such collaborations are taking place now, and there were also questions on the ethicality of such collaborations and what kind of collaborations are ideal and what do we need in future and so on. So it is in the backdrop of all these discussions and contextualities that rise up with the support of our small-scale fisheries cluster, reached out to the signatories of call to action to co-organize this webinar on rules of conduct. The rules of conduct webinar is also intended to educate us all. When I say us all, I mean the NGOs, the donors, the academic institutions, and other stakeholders who are working with small-scale fisheries or who would like to work with small-scale fisheries, so that we know about certain principles that we need to adhere to while engaging with small-scale fisheries to ensure social justice and equity. And also to ensure that we engage in true and meaningful stakeholder participation that leads to marine and coastal conservation. So with that backdrop, let me welcome you all to this webinar, and we have this amazing list of experts here who will be sharing your thoughts and the context of the rules of context, the details of the principles of the rules of context. So with that, let me welcome the first speaker for the webinar here. So we have Mr. Gausu Gueye here. He's joining us from Senegal. So Gausu is the president of CAOPA, which is the African Confederation of Professional Organizations of Artisanal Fishers. He's also the president of the Continental Platform of Non-State Actors in Fisheries and Aquaculture, which is AfriFish. And he has been working in small-scale fisheries sector for the past 30 years, dedicating himself in the organization of the African artisanal fishing sector, capacity building for stakeholders, and advocating for sustainable small-scale fishing. So with that, Gausu, I welcome you to give an overview of the rules of context and take us through the to its connection with the SSF call to action and the SSF guidelines. Over to you, Gausu.
Merci. Si je peux me permettre, si vous pouvez partager ma présentation pour que je fasse la présentation, à mon avis, c'est ça. Donc, je vais vous présenter comment on doit travailler avec les pêcheurs artisans d'Afrique, du Caraïbe, du Pacifique et d'Europe, à travers laquelle on a travaillé sur l'appel à l'action qui nous a conduit justement à ces règles de conduite. Et pour travailler avec les hommes et les femmes de la pêche artisanale, pour sauver notre océan. Next slide. Alors, il y a 2 ans, lors de l'année internationale de la pêche artisanale et de l'aquaculture IAFA 2022, des organisations de pêche artisanale des 5 continents ont lancé un appel à l'action aux décideurs lors de la conférence des Nations Unies sur les océans à Lisbonne. Cet appel à l'action se compose en 5 priorités inspirées des directives volontaires pour une pêche artisanale durable, discutées et décidées par les organisations de pêcheurs elles-mêmes. Il vise à protéger à la fois les océans et la pêche artisanale. Notre espoir était que cet appel, enraciné dans ces directives, serait entendu par les décideurs et les partenaires. Cependant, lors de la conférence de Lisbonne, nous avons été marginalisés dans les débats. Et cette photo, on l'a prise lors de la conférence de Lisbonne avec nos collègues d'Amérique latine et du centre. Oui, next slide. Alors, ces ONG ont parlé en notre nom sans notre consentement, nous traitant comme des faire-valoir pour leur propre campagne sans se préoccuper de nos demandes. La déclaration finale officielle de la conférence de Lisbonne n'a pas reconnu le rôle et l'importance de la pêche artisanale qui est important, le plus grand groupe d'utilisateurs de l'océan, actif également pour sa protection et sa conservation. C'est pourquoi nous, hommes et femmes de la pêche artisanale des 5 continents, avons élaboré ensemble des règles de conduite destinées aux organisations et aux partenaires souhaitant travailler avec des communautés de pêche artisanale dans le contexte de la conservation marine et côtière. Next slide. Il est crucial que tout partenariat soit fondé sur le respect et notre mode de vie et de notre culture en tant que communauté de pêcheurs, et que ce partenariat soit guidé par des principes inscrits dans les directives volontaires pour une pêche artisanale durable adoptées au niveau mondial. Ces principes incluent le respect des droits humains et de la dignité, la justice sociale, le respect de nos cultures et traditions, la non-discrimination, l'égalité et l'équité entre les sexes, la transparence et la redevabilité, la consultation, la participation informée, le fonctionnement de l'état de droit, ainsi que ces principes doivent être appliqués par le biais d'approches holistiques intégrées. Ces règles de conduite s'adressent principalement aux organisations souhaitant travailler avec la pêche artisanale dans le contexte de la conservation marine et côtière. Next slide. Elles sont divisées en 4 thèmes principaux. Les droits de la pêche artisanale dans le contexte de la conservation des océans, la participation et la représentation de la pêche artisanale dans la prise de décision, la voix et les messages de la pêche artisanale, les principes pour le soutien financier et les autres types de soutien. Mais il est important pour que nos partenaires s'engagent à respecter ces règles dans les actions que nous mènerons ensemble afin de garantir que les droits d'accès aux ressources marines dont nous dépendons pour vivre, droit à des conditions de vie et de travail décentes pour les femmes et les hommes de la pêche artisanale. droit pour nos enfants de vivre avec un océan en bonne santé, sans pollution, droit à l'information et à la participation réelle de nos communautés dans les décisions qui affectent nos vies ainsi que la santé des océans est votre source de nourriture. Droit à notre parole, nous n'avons pas besoin que ce soit des décideurs, des donateurs ou des ONG qui parlent à notre nom. Nous ne voulons plus qu'on parle à notre nom. Next slide. Nous sommes prêts à travailler avec vous, bailleurs de fonds, ONG, pour sauver notre océan, notre mer à tous, car que mieux que nous, communautés côtières, connaît l'océan et ses richesses. Nous en vivons, nous le respectons depuis des millénaires et nous connaissons ses secrets. Mais pour bien travailler ensemble, il faut un consentement, un accord, une définition qui est un bon partenariat. Nous espérons donc que ce webinaire contribuera à mieux faire connaître nos règles de conduite et jettera les bases d'un dialogue fructueux entre représentants de la pêche artisanale et membres de Rise Up sur les priorités établies dans l'appel à l'action afin que nous puissions travailler ensemble dans le cadre d'un véritable partenariat pour sauver nos océans et nos communautés. Next slide. Alors, donc, je vous remercie de votre aimable attention, tout en vous recommandant de lire l'appel à l'action et les règles de conduite. Et voilà les organisations d'Amérique latine, d'Amérique centrale, d'Afrique et d'Europe, leurs logos qui ont signé et adopté cet appel à l'action. Je vous remercie encore une fois de plus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaustrom. Thank you for detailing the context of rules of contact and also the call to action, and also talking about the need to ensure that the rights of small-scale fishers are protected and the voices are heard. Thank you so much. So with that, now let's move to a discussion of the key principles of the rules of contact. So we have SSF representatives from different parts of the world joining us in this section. So we have a recorded session from the Pacific now. So we have Mr. Laitia Tanata Jr. Sharing us a pre-recorded presentation where he will be talking about the first principle in the rules of contact, which is on always respect and never undermine our rights. So to talk about Laitia, he is an independent consultant and have been working with small-scale fisheries for the past 20 years or so. And he's currently reviewing the Fiji LMMA for the benefit of small-scale fishers in Fiji and for the whole region. So he has been engaging with community-based fisheries management, and Laitia is also passionate about fostering community development and sustainable fisheries for the benefit of SSF. So I kindly request Elena to put up the presentation from Laitia so that we can listen to him. I think there is some technical features happening there with the playing of the video presentation. So maybe we can go to the next speaker and come back to Laitia's presentation later. So we have Mr. Aaron Chacon here. He is from Costa Rica. He's a young small-scale fisher from Costa Rica, and he lives with his family in the Pacific coast. And small-scale fishing has been a part of his community's way of life. And as a young fisherman, he was able to study, and today he works in a cooperative that supports more than 4,000 people who depend on the resources of the sea. So here, Aaron will take us through the second principle, which is on nothing about us without us. Over to you, Aaron.
Hola a todos, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Aaron. Yo soy hijo de un pescador de pequeña escala. y toda mi familia es de la costa pacífica de Costa Rica, donde la pesca de pequeña escala ha sido parte de nuestra forma de vida. Yo como joven pescador he podido estudiar y hoy trabajo en la cooperativa que da sustento a más de 4.000 personas en mi pueblo que dependemos de los recursos del mar. Costa Rica tiene dos costas, la Pacífico y la Caribe, y en ambas tenemos pescadores artesanales. Mi país es muy pequeño, somos cerca de 30.000 hombres y mujeres que dependemos del mar. Nada de nosotros sin nosotros. ¿Qué quiere decir esto para un joven pescador como yo? Bueno, Costa Rica tiene 10 veces más mar que tierra y en los últimos años el gobierno ha conservado el 30% del territorio de nuestro país. Este proceso no nos lo han consultado ni nos lo han informado. Siempre nos hemos dado cuenta cuando la decisión ya está tomada. Pero el gobierno dice que esto es para nuestro beneficio. Pero yo tengo que decirles que sin habernos consultado, son otras personas los que se benefician de la conservación. Por ejemplo, la pesca de mayor escala, la pesca deportiva, los palangreros, el turismo y otros. Pero nosotros y nosotras los pescadores de pequeña escala no hemos podido ejercer a plenitud nuestros derechos fundamentales. No tenemos la mayoría de nosotros no tenemos acceso al mar porque no tenemos permisos de pesca. No tenemos acceso a la tenencia de tierra porque nos han quitado este derecho, ya sea el Estado o la empresa privada. No tenemos derecho a una pensión de jubilación como la mayoría de los costarricenses, ya que nuestro trabajo es informal. Lo hacemos de manera informal. ¿Cómo entonces nos sirve la voluntad de la conservación del mar sin que tengamos derechos plenos como otros ciudadanos en Costa Rica? Por eso quiero dejar muy bien claro que la palabra nada de nosotros sin nosotros. Cualquier decisión que nos afecte, nosotros tenemos que ser parte de esa mesa de decisiones para que nuestra experiencia, nuestras necesidades fundamentales, nuestro conocimiento tradicional sea incorporado y seamos verdaderamente nosotros los que tomemos las decisiones que nos están afectando día con día. El día de hoy, cuando el mundo se dirige hacia la COP16 en Colombia, una delegación de pescadores de mi región hemos decidido participar para continuar mostrando espacio real y nuestras ideas, y no apoyando las ideas de otros, sino planteando las soluciones desde nuestra experiencia para la conservación y desarrollo de nuestros territorios marinos y costeros. Por muchos años hemos sido manipulados y han puesto nuestras voces en los intereses de otros sectores. Otros nos han representado. Esta norma, nada de nosotros y nosotros, es poner fin a las malas prácticas. Es decir, no queremos que se hable de nosotros sin nosotros. Y recalco porque es algo que, aunque parece mentira, siempre sucede. Yo como joven pescador y como representante de jóvenes pescadores, y como mi nombre, hablo en nombre de todos los jóvenes representantes de pequeña escala en mi región, les digo que quiero poder seguir viviendo en mi territorio y no solo y no solamente poder seguir viviendo, sino hacerlo con un enfoque de derechos humanos en la conservación del mar. Muchas gracias a todos y un abrazo lleno de mar desde Tárcoles, Costa Rica.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And thank you for also bringing in the perspective on how formalities sometimes pushes out the right holders from their fundamental rights. And also for reinstating nothing about us without us. And as I was looking through the participant list, also we have more than 100 representatives from various civil society organizations, and I'm sure that many are already working with the small-scale fisheries, and many are interested to work with. Let's hope that they will take these words in its serious context and apply that as well. And we'll also have quite a lot of discussions on this coming up. So let's try playing the video again. Elena, can we do that, please?
Bula Vinaka, everyone. My name is Laitia Tamata, and I am honored to be part of this important webinar from the Pacific on the rules of conduct for working with small-scale fishers and fish workers. I've been deeply involved in fisheries management and community rights in the Pacific, and I can confidently say that one of the most fundamental principles for our coastal communities is the protection and respect for our rights over our marine resources. In the Pacific Islands, we are custodians of almost 30 million square kilometers of ocean, and our small-scale fisheries are central to our livelihoods, food security, and cultural heritage. The strength of our tenure and community rights over coastal areas has long been recognized as key to sustainable resource management. Our leaders have worked hard to ensure that local communities are involved in managing fisheries, and we have solid legal frameworks in place to protect these rights. However, these frameworks must be upheld and extended, especially as we look to defend our ocean from the threats of industrial fishing and other unsustainable practices. The rules of conduct we are discussing today highlight an essential message: always respect and never undermine our rights. This principle is non-negotiable. Our community's deep connection to the ocean means that our knowledge and traditions must be valued in any efforts to manage and conserve marine resources. Our rights to these resources are not just legal, they are ancestral, cultural, and central to our survival. The holders have the right to do with them as they please. Partners working with us must understand that genuine respect for our rights, both inshore and offshore, is the foundation for any successful collaboration, and therefore be transparent and readily declare potential conflicts of interest as well. The rules of conduct guide us to work in partnership, ensuring that small-scale fishers are fully respected, their voices heard, and their contributions to sustainable fisheries are acknowledged. It's about recognizing that without honoring these rights, efforts toward sustainability will not succeed. Our communities have been sustainably managing fisheries for generations with the support of the locally managed marine areas, which is FLAMA for Fiji, and there's regional platforms as well, like the community-based fisheries dialogue. We have the traditional knowledge, the practices, and the commitment to safeguard our oceans, but these must be reinforced by respect for our inherent rights. These guidelines are aligned with global goals like the voluntary guidelines to secure small-scale fisheries and the Sustainable Development Goals. But the key takeaway is that respect for our rights is not just a formal requirement, it is an ethical and practical necessity. For those of you working in fisheries or ocean conservation, I urge you to adopt this approach in your engagements with our communities. Partners who respect and uphold our rights are those who help build truly sustainable fisheries and protect our marine environment. Let us always remember that safeguarding the ocean means protecting the rights of those who depend on it daily. Together, by respecting this principle, we can create a future where our ocean and communities thrive, not just in the Pacific, but around the world. Nakawakalebu for your time and your commitment. Let's continue working together to ensure that our ocean and the rights of small-scale fishers are respected and preserved for generations to come. Good night.
Thank you, Laithia. Even though he's not here, I would like to thank you for that very strong statement that you have made on the need to respect traditional and local knowledge and rights, which are central to the survival of local communities. And only such interventions can lead to socially acceptable and socially successful and sustainable conservation measures. Thank you for bringing this to the front today. So, with that, let's move to our third speaker, who is Martha Kevel. So, Martha is the Executive Secretary of LIFE, which is Long-Backed Fishers of Europe. And she has a background in marine biology, economics, fisheries management, NGO management, conflict resolution. And she has been working with small-scale fishers for the past 18 years. So over to you, Martha. We are keen to listen to your perspective on the principle on the right to our own voice. Over to you, Martha.
Thanks so much, Ivaja, and thank you for inviting us. And I'm very honored to be also representing a bit the corner of Europe small-scale fishers in these very important rules of conduct that we also co-developed and co-signed with all these 9 organizations across the globe. So thank you very much. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. Also very honored to represent this or explain about this, the right to our own voice, because this is very close to our hearts. It's been now 10 years that LIFE was created, and precisely to this, to have the right to have our own voice in the discussions at the European level. So this is why it's so important for us. I think the title says it all, but I think it's very important, even though, to restate what it means, the right to our own voice. Of course, we want to collaborate, we want to work together with other NGOs and other stakeholders. But I think it's very important that people realize that there's a difference on appropriate our own messages and strengthen and amplify them. And I think it's very important that we remind that there's a need to strengthen and amplify, but never appropriate our own messages. Because too often we have seen that our messages are manipulated, even if it's not intended or intended, but then it gets distorted, and maybe taken out of context, it doesn't make the same meaning for us. So it's very important to keep the context on our messages. We don't need anyone, in the sense that I think we are here. All of our organizations and many others have organized ourselves. We realized that the voice was needed, so we make huge efforts to organize ourselves, make the governance in our organizations the right to have the strong voice, and to have a legitimate voice as well. And now it's here and it's strong. So you don't need to speak for us. You just need to give us the possibility. So for that, what it can be what partners can do for that. So it's just from the simple thing to ensure that the venues and the languages selected for making the decisions suit us, and it's not the way around. So the languages, for example, in our network, we have 14 languages, so we know the challenge, but fishers don't necessarily speak English, all of them. And I think it's fair enough to provide interpretation, to provide not just when they speak, but also in the working documents sometimes, to have the right information in their hands and be able to use their own language. Also ensure that there's a free, prior, and informed consent from small-scale fishers communities and other right holders before using the information previously in the public domain. It's been a common thing to use quotes or use information that has been taken with conversation from us, but then taken out of context, it changed the whole meaning. And I think it's important that fishers give their consent to any campaigns and so on, but at the same time that this, for example, quote is to this campaign and not another one. And I think this information circulation and transparency is very important. Also, they recognize and support our intellectual property rights when we use information about us. It's very common, for example, even in research projects, fisher organizations and fishers themselves spend a lot of time providing information, providing data, responding to questionnaires and whatever. And sometimes this information is not get back to us in the time and in the appropriate manner that it needs. I think it's very important also when we have the planning of any project campaign or anything, that there's a specific time and strategy to give back all these results that have been provided with our collaboration. And so it's also very important, recognize and value the information, beliefs, and traditional knowledge. I think my colleagues also mentioned that previously. We really believe that the traditional ecological knowledge is complementary to the scientific knowledge, and both together could bring a better picture for having the best solution. So the traditional ecological knowledge should be valued and respected, and at least listened to. And last but not least, of course, support small-scale fishing communities and build our capacity so that we have the skills and opportunities to tell our own stories. We are all small-scale organizations, are small, and sometimes we have volunteer work, people dedicating time, and so on. And I think it's fair to support us to have this capacity to be in equal footing with other stakeholders and be in the right moment, in the right place, in the right time. So that's my last slide, just to mention that I think there's in the recent years we have seen that we are here, we have our voice, that our voice is strong. We have bring fishers, fisherwomen, fishermen, and even the voice of the youth in the decision-making processes. And this can change and make a change for the ocean protection and for the resilience of our communities. So thank you all for listening, and I'm here to respond to any questions if needed.
Thank you so much, Martha. Maybe the question answers we can take towards the end of this next session. We'll have a dedicated Q&A session for around 20 minutes. Thank you very much for bringing in the context of free, prior, and informed consent, transparency. These are all questions that has been raised in multiple venues, in multiple contexts, in multiple policy spaces. So it's very important to discuss this. I'm sure that many of the partners will have questions and suggestions and concerns maybe regarding these concepts, so which they can type in the chat box also. So Martha is here, other experts are here, so please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box. We'll be addressing that towards the end of these sessions. So with that, let's move on to the fourth speaker in the session, who will be talking about working with us also means funding us. So to discuss on that, we have Ms. Madhu Raisa Nadije. So Ms. Raisa is a member of CAOPA, which is African Confederation of Artisanal Fisheries Organization, Youth Wing, and she's also a member of FishNet. And she's a fish processor from Ivory Coast, and she is with the Cooperative of Fishmonger and Fish Processors of Aboba Fivotidine. My pronunciation could go wrong here, but since Raisa couldn't make it in person, she has sent us a recorded video, which Elena will play for us now. Elena, could you please play the video?
Le quatrième point de code de conduite concerne le fait que travailler avec nous, c'est aussi nous financer. En effet, personne n'a plus d'intérêt que nous, les femmes et les hommes, des communautés de pêche artisanale, à atteindre nos objectifs mutuels. Malheureusement, et même trop souvent, les fonds et les ressources collectées par d'autres, en notre nom, bien sûr, ne nous parviennent pas dans les proportions significatives et nous n'avons guère notre mot à dire sur la manière dont ces ressources sont utilisées. Un bon partenariat repose sur une relation à long terme, fondée sur la confiance mutuelle. Celle-ci ne peut s'établir que s'il y a la plus grande transparence concernant les différents intérêts des pêcheurs et des organisations qui les soutiennent, mais aussi sur le financement des actions identifiées. Les vrais partenaires veilleront à ce que nous ayons un soutien à long terme, à ce que aussi nous participions aux décisions sur le financement et à ce que nos organisations soient financées proportionnellement à notre travail et aux enjeux. Pour cela, les partenaires doivent veiller à ce qu'une proportion équitable des fonds atteigne effectivement les exécutants et les bénéficiaires locaux. Ils doivent être ouverts et transparents, y compris lorsqu'il y a des objectifs proportionnellement incomparables entre eux et les organisations des pêcheurs. Il y a aussi des cas où les partenaires peuvent avoir d'autres projets mieux financés qui vont à l'encontre de nos intérêts. Cela doit être discuté de façon transparente pour trouver des solutions qui préservent les intérêts des pêcheurs. Garantir que la mise en œuvre du projet se fasse au niveau local sur la base des principes de cogestion et des priorités identifiées dans l'appel à l'action. En bref, il faut veiller à ce que les fonds soient affectés là où ils sont vraiment nécessaires. Étant petite fille de marieuse, nous avons grandi dans les sillons de nos moments, dans les sillons de leur activité. Et généralement, ce qui se passait, par ma propre expérience, sur nos sites de travail, nous voyions dans le temps des ONG, nous voyions des ONG qui venaient au nom d'une aide, au nom d'un problème à résoudre, au nom de la pauvreté ou bien d'un sujet bien précis. Ils venaient sur nos sites de travail, ils venaient nous expliquer qu'est-ce que les ONG, parfois ils nous faisaient cotiser. Et à notre grande surprise, quand le projet était ficelé et que les fonds étaient décaissés, ces responsables d'ONG disparaissaient et laissaient nos mamans dans le désarroi. Et à plusieurs reprises, nous avons assisté à cela, que les noms de nos mamans, que la présence, que nos mamans étaient utilisées pour pouvoir avoir de l'argent par les responsables de certaines ONG. Il arrivait parfois qu'on nous invitait à des réunions, à des ateliers, à des séminaires, juste parce que ces ONG avaient besoin de remplir une liste de présence pour pouvoir justifier leurs dépenses, pour pouvoir justifier leur programme. Alors que nous avons des problèmes réels auxquels il fallait qu'on trouve des solutions. Nous avons des problèmes réels, c'est-à-dire sortir de la pauvreté, avoir un niveau décent, un travail décemment, avoir beaucoup de projets que nous avions. Cependant, ces projets-là n'étaient pas financés. Ou bien le financement qui venait n'était pas à la hauteur des besoins. Le coût des financements était réduit, l'argent était réduit par rapport au coût du financement, ce qui faisait que le projet n'arrivait pas à son terme. Et parfois même l'argent ne venait pas. C'était un autre problème. Et il arrivait parfois qu'on vienne nous présenter aussi, on s'engage avec certaines ONG, ils viennent nous présenter des projets qui ne sont pas forcément ce à quoi nous nous attendions, qui ne rentrent pas forcément dans ce que nous voulons. Et comme parfois il arrive que les femmes, elles sont dans un état de pauvreté, elles ont des problèmes, des besoins qui sont présents, elles sont obligées d'accepter malgré ce fait-là, d'accepter cela. Et nous disons non. Il faudrait que les responsables de ces ONG veillent à ce que le financement atteigne les personnes ciblées. C'est le plus important parce qu'un cadeau, un précieux cadeau, s'il n'arrive pas là où il doit arriver, devient du poison, devient comme une malédiction. Et nous n'en voulons pas. Nous sommes fatigués de nous faire gruger par certaines ONG. Nous voulons travailler à long terme. Nous sommes désireuses. Et les femmes de la pêche artisanale sont dynamiques. Elles sont pourvoyeuses d'emploi. Elles sont pourvoyeuses en économie. Elles sont pourvoyeuses de ressources. Et toutes ces choses. Et pour cela, et agissent pour la sécurité alimentaire. Vraiment, merci beaucoup.
A big thanks to Raisa also for raising that one of the major issue in relation to ethicality when it comes to funding small-scale fisheries. So while listening to all these four principles, we see that they're not compartmentalized or distinct in its own nature. They're all interconnected. These are all questions on ethicality, justice, and fundamental rights. So with that, I welcome Beatrice to conclude this particular session and to also let us know, since we have discussed quite a lot on the SSF call to action and the rules of conduct, and I have also shared the link to the rules of conduct in the chat box so that everyone can go through the text and raise your questions from the text also. So with that, we have Beatrice now, and she will be discussing on how to adhere to the rules of conduct when we work with small-scale fisheries. So to introduce Beatrice to you, Beatrice is the coordinator of CFFA, which is Coalition for Fair Fisheries Arrangements, since 1994. Her work included extensive collaborations with African artisanal fishing organizations and advocacy towards EU institutions on EU-African fisheries policies that affects African fishery-dependent coastal communities. And prior to CFFA, she was also associated with the International Collective in Support of Fishworkers. Over to you, Beatrice, please.
Merci beaucoup, Sivaja, et merci et bonjour à tout le monde. Je vais m'exprimer en français. Donc, tout d'abord, pour partager un peu notre expérience de comment est-ce que nous adhérons aux règles de conduite, de façon formelle, donc ce qu'on a fait, c'est d'en prendre connaissance et comme nous les partageons, nous les avons partagés sur notre site internet en exprimant formellement que nous suivons ces règles de conduite. Alors, une chose, c'est de les mettre sur internet, une autre chose, c'est de les appliquer. Et donc, je vais juste partager un peu notre expérience sur la façon dont nous essayons d'appliquer ces règles de conduite au quotidien. Alors d'abord, une chose qui nous paraît très importante, ça a été dit, c'est d'avoir le consentement des organisations de pêcheurs, des hommes et des femmes des organisations de pêcheurs, avant quoi que ce soit, avant de prendre une quelconque initiative. Et donc de notre côté, ce qu'on fait, c'est que nous avons chaque mois une rencontre où nous décidons des activités que nous allons faire pour la suite ou du suivi de certaines activités. Et dans ces rencontres, les pêcheurs, les hommes et les femmes de nos organisations partenaires participent au même titre que tout le monde. Et donc, il est évident que leur avis est essentiel et nous n'allons pas entreprendre aucune activité sans avoir leur assentiment. Donc, pour nous, ça, c'est extrêmement important. Une autre chose aussi, c'est que, bon, nous sommes basés en Europe et pour nous, organisations européennes, ce n'est pas approprié d'intervenir auprès de décideurs qui ne sont pas européens. Et donc, nous travaillons beaucoup avec les institutions européennes, mais depuis 30 ans que nous sommes en activité, nous n'avons jamais eu d'activité en Afrique. Nous pensons que ça, c'est vraiment la place des pêcheurs artisans africains, de la société civile africaine, que d'interpeller leurs décideurs. Donc, ce n'est pas à nous de le faire. Nous ne le faisons jamais. Ce que nous faisons, c'est de travailler de façon très proche et de collaborer de façon très, très suivie avec nos partenaires africains pour avoir des stratégies communes. Mais nous n'intervenons absolument pas en Afrique. Et nous pensons d'ailleurs que, parce qu'il y a beaucoup d'ONG qui sont d'origine européenne ou des États-Unis, qui ont des bureaux en Afrique, mais nous sommes toujours sceptiques sur le fait que ce genre d'action ait une influence à long terme. Ça peut avoir des influences à court terme parce qu'il y a beaucoup de moyens déployés parfois, mais sur le long terme, ce qui est important, c'est qu'il y ait une capacité nationale des acteurs nationaux de la pêche artisanale pour pouvoir changer les choses. Pour nous, c'est le seul moyen que les choses changent au bénéfice des populations côtières et pour la protection des écosystèmes. Alors, de façon très pratique également, c'est très important pour nous que les pêcheurs puissent s'exprimer dans leur langue. On a un des plus gros de nos budgets, et de plus en plus, c'est le budget pour la traduction et l'interprétation. On essaie de faire notre possible, mais c'est essentiel. Il faut que les pêcheurs puissent s'exprimer dans leur langue, et trop souvent encore, il y a des organisations de rencontres, de conférences, de webinaires où il n'y a que l'anglais. Et à ce moment-là, ça coupe vraiment les possibilités pour beaucoup de pêcheurs, beaucoup de femmes et d'hommes de la pêche artisanale de participer. Donc, c'est essentiel d'avoir ce service d'interprétation et de traduction qui soit mis à disposition des pêcheurs. C'est essentiel de le faire. C'est aussi essentiel que quand on voit que ça ne se fait pas, il faut le dire. Il y a par exemple, en 2023, lors de la conférence sur les océans, il y a plusieurs événements qui ont été organisés sur la pêche artisanale qui n'étaient que en anglais. C'est important de souligner cela et de dire aux organisateurs que c'est pas correct, que c'est pas comme ça qu'on peut reconnaître l'importance de la pêche artisanale ni la participation des pêcheurs. Enfin, ce qui est important aussi, c'est que pour nous, on passe beaucoup de temps à expliquer à nos partenaires africains les processus de prise de décision. Quand est-ce que telle décision est prise? Qu'est-ce qui est en jeu à tel moment? Quels sont les délais pour les décisions? C'est extrêmement important parce que ce qu'on voit aussi souvent, c'est que beaucoup d'organisations donnent beaucoup d'explications aux pêcheurs sur le contenu, sur les enjeux, mais pas sur les processus de décision. Et donc, ça veut dire qu'on invite des pêcheurs à aller aux Nations Unies, on invite des pêcheurs à aller à la FAO, on invite des pêcheurs à venir à l'Union européenne sans leur expliquer dans quel jeu est-ce qu'ils vont jouer. On les invite pour venir témoigner. Pour nous, ça, ce n'est pas la façon de faire. La façon de faire, c'est qu'ils aient bien conscience des décisions qui vont être prises et de comment utiliser ces opportunités pour faire valoir leur propre agenda. Donc ça, c'est extrêmement, c'est quelque chose qui guide aussi beaucoup notre action. Et enfin, parce que c'est une question que j'ai eu à discuter avec plusieurs organisations non gouvernementales, notamment d'environnement, la question était de savoir si on s'engage à appliquer les règles de conduite, est-ce qu'on s'engage aussi à soutenir l'appel à l'action? Alors, ma réponse, en tout cas pour ça, c'est de dire il ne faut pas absolument qu'une ONG soit d'accord avec tout ce qu'il y a dans l'appel à l'action ou trouve que l'appel à l'action n'est pas assez large, pas assez approfondi sur certains points. Ça n'est pas un problème. Pour moi, l'important, c'est de dire, voilà, on veut discuter avec vous et on considère que l'appel à l'action, c'est la base de discussion de départ de notre dialogue avec vous. On reconnaît que l'appel à l'action, c'est vraiment ce qui est sur la table, ce qui a été mis sur la table pour les pêcheurs. C'est une base valide de discussion et on va commencer notre dialogue avec vous sur cette base-là. Pour moi, c'est ça qui est important. Si après on n'est pas d'accord et qu'on veut ajouter des choses, pour moi, il n'y a pas de problème. Par exemple, dans l'appel à l'action tel qu'il existe, il y a relativement peu de choses sur le rôle de la pêche artisanale dans la conservation de la biodiversité, mais c'est un enjeu qui a été discuté par la suite, notamment lors du dernier comité de pêche de la FAO, et c'est quelque chose qui a amené à un dialogue entre les organisations d'environnement et les organisations de pêche artisanale signataires de l'appel à l'action. Pour moi, c'est ça qui est important, c'est d'avoir cette base de dialogue commune, cette entente commune, et après on peut discuter évidemment d'approfondir certains aspects ou d'autres. Voilà, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you very much for taking us through the details. So as we have already seen, these are the, it's not that we are not collaborating, the SSF organizations are not collaborating with the other NGOs, or they don't want to collaborate with the NGOs. It's just that the SSF organizations would like certain set of principles to be adhered while engaging in such collaboration. So we also have examples of best practices coming from different parts of the world also. We have very positive collaborations happening between civil societies and the fish worker organizations and movements altogether. So we would like to bring to you one such kind of an example from Ghana, where Mr. K. Kwado Yamoha will be talking about certain concrete actions that they have taken in their context and their impact. So this is a combined presentation. So following K, Mr. Nana Kwegia from Ghana will also join for a brief presentation. So I kindly request Mr. K to take the floor. So Mr. K is a fisheries governance expert with close to 20 years of extensive experience in working with small-scale fisheries in Ghana. He is a founder and convener of Fisheries Alliance, a multi-stakeholder policy dialogue platform on marine and coastal landscape. Over to you, Kay. And I also kindly request you to condense your presentation a little bit so that we are within the time limit. Thank you so much. Over to you, Kay.
Okay, thank you very much. As said, we are making a presentation from Ghana, and we are sharing some concrete actions and impact and best practices that small-scale fishers and civil society have been able to do. The most important thing is that for us, our rule of conduct for working with small-scale fishers and fish workers focus on promoting effective collaboration and supporting sustainable practices. So it's very, very important. Then in Ghana, we have been working as civil society, working with small-scale fishers to support the associations to participate from the point of collaborative fisheries management, including participating and in decision-making at all levels. So that is very important. And we believe that the principles of fostering mutual respect, transparency, and shared benefits should guide the process. And Nana would also share that the Small-Scale Fishers Association, including CAFGWAC, is also contributing effectively in policy dialogues and is even implementing projects, especially what is called the Fishers' Right Project. So Nana will share that in his presentation. Some of the best practices is that in Ghana, Ghana is developing a sustainable ocean plan, and this has been an inclusive process that small-scale fishers associations are participating in the process, identifying areas of ocean equity and others to ensure that their rights are protected. There's also marine spatial planning, especially for the marine fisheries, because we have a lot of offshore oil and gas platform and other activities offshore in Ghana. And if we don't do special planning, there may be problems, especially fishing grounds may be lost. There's also fisheries co-management policy in Ghana that is also creating opportunities for fishers to be involved in the process. There is currently the revision of fisheries laws, and that is promoting collaborative fisheries management and other provisions that support the process. Let me quickly highlight that. I've already mentioned that the Ghana Sustainable Ocean Plan is promoting ocean equity, and that is very important, ensuring that the rights of fishers are secured within the process. And it's also looking at ensuring that small-scale fisher families also have secured access to food. So food security is important. Gender equity or equality is also one important thing. Human rights issues and also fisheries management are other important things. But importantly, social, economic, and cultural support for fishers has been some of the key areas, and then benefit sharing, even from petroleum offshore support. So some is coming to support fisheries management and others. So that is very important. The other elements of ocean equity that I will speak about is also environmental equity, how pollution can be dealt with so that it does not impact on the fish stocks of the fishers, because fishers must have access to fishery. So that is very, very important. The co-management policy that we have in Ghana is promoting small-scale fishers participation in fisheries governance, where they are part of decision-making to be able to co-manage the fisheries resources with government. So there's it addresses the issue of low involvement of local SSF communities in fisheries governance. It also addresses issues of open access to fisheries and also issues of illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing that really affects small-scale fishers, especially from industrial fishing. So that is also looking at that. And as part of the fisheries co-management policy, there are certain committees that are being put in place supporting governance and fisheries management, and small-scale fisher associations are members of these committees. So this is a very good practice to get them to be on the table and participate. We have the Scientific Technical Committee, that fishers are contributing indigenous and traditional knowledge and social science to scientific decisions on fisheries management. We also have fisheries management operational committees where fisher folks are there assessing the implementation of government policy and providing real-time and very effective feedback. We have the small pelagic co-management committees where small-scale fishers are part of this process to look at the management of the small pelagic fish in Ghana, which is very important. We also have landing beach enforcement committees where small-scale fishers are part of the process to monitor, report illegal fishing by other foreign or bigger industrial vessels so that they can protect their fishing. So there's a good structure enshrined to make sure that fishers and small-scale fishers are participating through the process. And even for the small pelagic co-management committees, the structures are even brought down to the local levels where fisher folks reps can participate at each of the regional levels and bring the regional perspective and what really affects them to fore. So that is very important in the process. In the revision of Ghana's fisheries law, it is inculcating participatory process for fishers to be part. So fishers are playing a role and they are consulted. Also, small-scale fishers representation on the Fisheries Commission Governance Board has been increased from 1 person to about 3 people, including 1 female, so that small-scale fishers have enough role. There's also the provision of legal mandates through the co-management for small-scale fishers to also play effective role. And then there's also transparency and accountability principles that is supporting small-scale fishers to have adequate information in fisheries governance in Ghana. I will now let Nana Kweja bring in other aspects of the presentation. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Kay. Thank you also for sticking to the timeline. And as you mentioned, maybe what we require, there are maybe during the collaborative processes also, people might take certain things for granted. So maybe what we need is clear-cut processes and institutions to ensure that all these principles are maintained and we respect and adhere to them. So we also have Nana here. So Nana will take us through some examples of best practice or what has to be done in terms of positive collaborations. So to introduce Nana to you all, Mr. Nana Kebe he's from Ghana, and he's a small-scale fisher. He's a canoe owner and a fisher leader. He is currently the national president of the Canoe and Fishing Gear Owners Association of Ghana, representing 4 coastal regions of Ghana. He's also a steering committee member of CASA Initiative Ghana, and he has been the youth leader representing Ghana at the African Confederation of Professional Organization of Artisanal Fishers, which is COPA. Over to you, Nana.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. Kindly put my 2-slide screen on so that I take attendees through few inputs that we have to share with you. Could you please go to the next slide? Yeah, good. Yeah. So as the conversation has begun, we are looking at what can we all do, and for this gathering involving CSOs, NGOs, and other stakeholders in the fishery sector, particularly the small-scale fishery sector, it is important for us to appreciate the fact that there is a lot that the CSO, NGO community can do to support fishers. And when the question is put to me, what can you do? And my response is that there is a lot that you can do, but it begins with commitment. Are we committed to this conversation that we are having? Are we committed to this cause? Because following the rules of conduct comes with a lot of commitment. For some of the organization, it will involve changing the way you go about your normal operations. So it will take commitment for CSOs, NGOs, and other stakeholders in the sector to abide by these rules of conduct, which is much needed to shaping the relationship that other stakeholders have with fishers and improve how fishers participate in decision-making. When you look at the sector, the issues are so many that will mean prioritizing what is most important or what can be done now. Now the question is that when you are prioritizing, who decide what is the priority? And for us fishers, we understand the issues and we understand the desired changes that we want. And it is important for all other stakeholders to appreciate this point, that fishers have priorities in the face of the many issues that we have in the sector. So that if the area that CSOs, NGOs, other stakeholders are focusing is not a priority of the fishers, then one, you are not respecting the right of the fishers, and you are not involving fishers in the decision making, and you are not letting fishers say what they want to say. So prioritization is key. We also have to look at ownership of the various processes, various interventions that goes on in the sector. Who owns these processes? There are so many processes at the local, national, and even international level that goes on. But the point is, how is that impacting the situation at the landing beaches, the situation at the country level? It is important for us all to prioritize ownership so that if fishers are made to own the process by way of our active participation in decision-making, by way of expressing decision-making power at the table, through inclusive processes and transparent processes, then fishers can own the process. And when fishers own the process, we can all be guaranteed that the impact will be great. It is also important for us to look at support. So for this afternoon, I'm speaking on these three issues: prioritization, ownership, and support. What kind of support are we providing for small-scale fishers? And small-scale fishers need support to be able to do the many things that we have to do. So it is important for all other stakeholders who work with small-scale fishers, in the interest of observing, committing to the rules of conduct, to provide support and direct support to fishers in area of resources, in area of services, and in area of infrastructure. That will be the way to empower small-scale fishers to be able to deliver. Please, next slide. I have this just to better the conversation that we are having. That, for instance, it is important for organizations, civil society organizations, and non-governmental organizations, and all other actors in the sector to support the mobilization and organizational development of small-scale fishers. Many of these organizations work with small-scale fishers, but have not demonstrated adequate interest in the mobilization of fishers and the organizational development of these small-scale fisher associations. Now, I can mention the Half Africa Foundation, which Mr. Chair is the director, that throughout our formation, he has committed to supporting how we mobilize our members and how we organize ourselves as an association. Because if you will work with small-scale fisher association, then one has to be interested in how small-scale fishers are mobilized and how small-scale fishers are organized. It is only when we have organized ourselves well, then we'll be able to engage, we'll be able to do the numerous things that we have to do. So it is important, if we really want to commit to the rules of conduct, then it is important for CSOs, NGOs, and all other stakeholders to be interested in how fishers are mobilized and our organizational development. It is also important that we commit to spreading the news about SSR fishers. We need to create the necessary platform, whether media platform and all other platforms, for fishers to tell our story. Small-scale fishers are doing a lot. We have a lot of issues. So many things go on in the sector. But who hears from the small-scale fishers? If we really want to give small-scale fishers a voice, then we should commit to establishing the needed platforms for fishers to tell our story. In Ghana, for instance, the Fisheries Alliance platform has been a commendable tool for us in spreading our issues since our beginning, and now that is a platform for stakeholders. And once we have access to that platform, we are able to tell our story. Now we can mention other organizations, CFFA and the others, who, whenever there is an international program or global platforms, they ensure that fishers are represented at those platforms to tell their story. So other organizations will have to commit to creating, establishing the platforms for fishers to tell our story. The next has to do with planning with fishers and not planning for fishers. I remember our recent project we did with St. Andrews University, led by Dr. Ife Sinashi Okafuyahu from the Department of Geography and Sustainable Development. That ensured that throughout the proposal writing stage, fishers were involved. We had our input into the proposal, everything was planned with us, and we were made to lead a research project. So when fishers are involved in planning, then fishers were able to be active in implementing, and fishers can own the process and the impact can be greater. So planning with fishers and not planning for fishers. It is also important that organizations institutionalize meetings with fishers. In many cases, organizations engage fishers as and when they have projects, as and when they have something to do with fishers. It is important for us to institutionalize meetings with fishers so that it can be regular, and fishers can also have their input into the agenda and what is discussed on a regular basis to better our situation and better our relationship. For organizations like CFFA and others, there are monthly steering committee meetings where fishers also have their input into the agenda, and that is also discussed by attendees of such steering committee meetings. So other organizations will have to consider institutionalizing meetings with SSF so that our engagement can be regular, can be formalized, and it can be better. There's also the need to dedicate funding for small-scale fishers. Many of these projects that NGOs, CSOs come to implement, yes, involve fishers, but it is important that in writing some of these proposals, some component is established as direct funding to fishers to support our internal structure, building internal structures and our internal organization. So once we are able to commit resources to fishers by way of giving them direct funding to support our internal mobilization, our internal building internal structures, our internal organization, then it positions fishers in a way to collaborate effectively, empower fishers to be able to collaborate effectively, to partner effectively with CSOs, with the NGOs, with researchers and all other stakeholders in the sector. I think going forward, we can commit to the rules of conduct and consider some of these basic things to improve the relationship and improve the engagement with fishers. Thank you, and good afternoon to you all.
Thank you so much. So without much delays, let's jump on to the question answer sessions. We have a question from Professor Stella Williams, thanking Aaron and asking to Gausu whether Gausu Kaupa is engaging with young people in Senegal. Gausu, would you like to answer that briefly?
Oui, merci Sivadja. Donc, j'ai reçu la question, effectivement. On demande est-ce qu'on responsabilise les jeunes du côté de l'Afrique. Je rappelle tout simplement qu'au niveau de la CAOPA, il y a une cellule des jeunes. Tous les pays membres au niveau organisationnel de la CAOPA, ils ont délégué un jeune, un homme et une femme qui sont dans la cellule des jeunes sous la coordination du secrétaire général qui se réunissent régulièrement et même quelquefois qui nous représentent dans certaines réunions au niveau continental ou international. Et encore, ils sont en lien avec Aaron dont on fait allusion et les jeunes d'Amérique centrale, d'Amérique latine et d'Europe. Ils ont leur propre plateforme où ils discutent. Tout à l'heure, je n'ai pas parlé au nom de l'Afrique. J'ai parlé au nom des signataires de l'appel à l'action qui ont conduit aux règles de conduite. Donc, ce n'est pas tout simplement l'Afrique ou la CAOPA, mais aujourd'hui, à partir de Lisbonne, il y a une synergie qui est née, une collaboration entre l'Europe, l'Afrique, l'Amérique centrale, l'Amérique latine et les Caraïbes et les Pacifiques. Tout ce qu'ils ont présenté, on a eu à travailler ensemble, physiquement et régulièrement, on tient des réunions par visioconférence. Oui, l'Afrique, on prend des jeunes, les jeunes, ils sont dans la CAOPA, on est en train de les préparer justement pour la relève.
Thank you so much. And there are a few more questions, so let's jump on to this question from Hazel. Hazel has this question on the signing up to the rules of conduct. So her question is whether it's possible to sign up to the rules of conduct without signing to the call to action. They currently appear to be interlinked now. So Beatrice, could you please answer this question?
Yes, thank you, Sivaja, and thank you, Hazel. Yes, I tried to explain a little bit, but I think maybe to give an example, as Raisa was saying earlier, a lot of the time NGOs come with their agenda, with their proposals, with their plans, initiatives, and ask for reaction from the fishers. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I think the call to action is trying to reverse that. These are the message of the fishers. These are the proposal of the fishers. And they're asking the NGO, what do you think about that? So for me, for example, to take the example of an issue which is very topical, the 30 by 30. A lot of environmental NGO have this as a priority, which is very valid. But I think the idea is for them, if they take the call to action as a basis for discussion, the idea is for them not to come with their proposal about 30 by 30 and ask the fishers, what do you think about having an MPA here or there or whatever, but just to come and say, look at the call to action and say, okay, in terms of access to resources, your priority is having protected access to resources, your rights respected in the coastal zone, etc., etc. How do we as NGO respond to that before coming and discuss the 30 by 30? Because priority should be protection of access right to fisher and the promotion of co-management for sustainable development in the coastal area. So the kind of protection of the ecosystem is not something that is forgotten by the fishers. Something that Gausu was saying, they know about their environment, they know how to protect it. So I think this call to action is not to impose anything to anybody, it's just to reverse a bit who is making the proposal and who is reacting to it. It shouldn't be the NGOs coming with their proposal and the fishers reacting to it. It should be the NGOs reacting to the fishers' proposal, which is a call to action, and reacting first to their priorities and then opening the dialogue about how they could work together.
Thanks, Beatrice. And there is a question related to the call to action from Timur Kajioglu. So his question is that, can you please elaborate on what is meant by preferential access and co-management of 100% of coastal areas? It would be helpful to hear how this applies in context where ocean and coastal areas belong to the state, or in the context of major infrastructure such as port, oil and gas, renewable energy structures, etc. So since Nana was talking about co-management from Ghana, Nana, would you like to take that question?
Right. Thank you. On the matter of co-management, we have all come to realize that the regulator, and for that matter, government alone, cannot manage the fisheries, because we are actors in the space and we exert a lot of influence in the sector. So there's a need for government and other stakeholders to come together to manage the sector. So in Ghana, for instance, government has now rolled out the co-management policy, and co-management institutions have been established. For instance, we have the small pelagic co-management committees, which are at the regional level. So we have 4 co-management committees. Now, what this co-management committee is supposed to do is to come up with a management plan to regulate activities in the areas within their jurisdiction as the mandate determines. So for instance, with a small pelagic co-management committee, it will be their responsibility to come up with a management plan as to how to manage small pelagic species. And since small pelagic species by Ghana law is a sole preserve of artisanal fisher organizations have representation at the co-management committees to come up with a co-management plan or a management plan that to the management of small pelagic co-management committee. By giving fishers preferential access and 100% co-management is ensuring that the law, the regulation, and all the institutional arrangements support fishers' participation in decision-making regarding how the sector that relates to small-scale fishers are governed. By preferential access, we also mean that fishers cannot compete with industrial vessels. So there's the need for some planning to ensure that fishers have unimpeded access to fisheries resources. So for instance, Ghana, we have the inshore exclusive zone, which is up to 6 nautical miles or 30-meter depth, depending which one is found. There's a need for the fisheries managers, and for that matter, government, to ensure that that zone that is preserved for artisanal fishers is indeed protected for artisanal fishers, so that fishers can have that access unchallenged, unimpeded that area. So there's the need for zoning to give fishers access to fisheries resources and to institute frameworks that ensure that fishers are actively involved in how that sector is governed and managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. Maybe two more questions which we can briefly discuss. Maybe one to Martha. There's a question from Pedro asking what specific challenges do small-scale fishers face in data analysis and decision-making, and how do you think new technologies, both hardware and software, could help address those challenges? Martha, could you please reply to that?
Sure. It's been lately some discussions around that. At Live, we think that actually we promote this idea of data empowerment for small-scale fishers. Normally, small-scale fishers are providers of data in the sense that they have to report, they have to do things, but normally they are not users of this data. And I think it's now more and more important that we can also have access to this information, not just to manage better our companies, but also our fishing grounds. If we want this co-management to work as well, I think it's good that we are also owners of this data and we have access to it. And yeah, I mean, technology is a tool, but at the same time is something that we need to see how it's used. I mean, it's not could be badly used. So in our own case, we want to have tools and digital tools that are co-developed with us again. So we are not kind of, you know, a company comes to us and say, this is the technology that you need, but something that we can co-develop together and see what we can say to the technologists. Well, this is our needs and this is what we would like to do and how we can help us to do that. And I think this is the general approach that we are saying here, right? It's not about coming with established ideas, but to really work together in an equal space for combating the challenges that we have. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yes,
I can.
Yes. Thanks, Martha. And maybe one brief question. Question is big, but then maybe a brief answer from you, Nana. What's your experience that you can share with others to employ how they can replicate the example from the example that you and Kay presented from Ghana to other parts of the world? Maybe 30 seconds, Nana. Could you please condense your answer and say how to replicate your examples to the other part of the world?
Yeah, it is important for fishers and fisher leaders to appreciate the fact that small-scale fisheries indeed plays important role in the sector. And therefore, there is a need for us to commit to mobilizing the fishers. There's a need for us to commit to mobilizing the fishers. So, one, in so many places, the fishers are not that mobilized. So they are not able to support the ongoing processes. If we commit to mobilizing fishers at the landing beaches and organizing them, the fishers will be able to play their active role in the various processes that we want them to. So let us commit to mobilizing fishers and organizing them at the landing beaches, and they will be able to take part in the ongoing processes and bring about the needed impact and then the needed result that we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. So this is towards the end of the webinar. So I kindly request Vivian. We all know Vivian very well. I'm sure that many of you might be working with Vivian very closely. So she doesn't need any particular introduction. She's a marine biologist, but has been working on small-scale fisheries and human rights-based approaches for quite long. So Vivian, could you please conclude the whole webinar in a very brief message and to give us a few pointers how to take this forward from here?
Gracias. Voy a hablar en español. Entonces, por favor, pongan sus aparatitos en inglés. Imaginamos muy poco cuando viajamos acompañando a los pescadores de pequeña escala de Mesoamérica al segundo Congreso Mundial de los Océanos, el impacto que esto tendría en el desarrollo de una visión de derechos humanos en la conservación marina. Nunca nos imaginamos lo que iba a pasar después. En ese espacio del segundo congreso, Hannah Wetterstrand de Swedbio tocó una campanita en el evento paralelo de los pescadores de pequeña escala para que hiciéramos silencio y escucháramos las voces de los pescadores y pescadoras que estaban ahí presentes. Era una sala llena de organizaciones interesadas en escuchar esa visión. Ese espacio fue realmente maravilloso. Probablemente muchos de ustedes estuvieron ahí presentes, porque generó solidaridad, entendimiento, paz, comprensión y generó mucha alegría. Hoy, escuchando a los pescadores y pescadoras de nuevo, hemos logrado dar un paso más en esa misma ruta. Un paso importante para que los movimientos de pesca y las organizaciones interesadas en los temas de equidad, derechos humanos y justicia se entiendan entre sí. Todos los que estamos aquí hoy, o los que quedamos todavía, porque ha sido una sesión muy larga, y especialmente los pescadores de pequeña escala, debemos de estar muy contentos de lo que se ha logrado en este camino desde Lisboa hasta el día de hoy. Me parece que estamos más claros en lo que los pescadores y pescadoras del mundo nos quieren decir. Cuando leemos las normas de conducta, hay un párrafo muy importante que yo quisiera replicar aquí o leer aquí. Dice, ¿quién mejor que nosotros, las comunidades costeras de 6 continentes, entienden el océano y sus riquezas? Vivimos de él y dependemos de él. Lo hemos respetado durante miles de años y tenemos amplios conocimientos tradicionales y experiencias sobre él. Estamos dispuestos a trabajar con ustedes, responsables políticos, donantes, científicos, ONGs, para salvar nuestro océano, nuestra madre común. Pero para trabajar bien con ustedes, necesitamos consentimiento, acuerdo, y la definición de lo que es una buena alianza. Hoy con esta discusión hemos avanzado un poco, porque estamos más cerca, así como escuchamos la campanita de Hannah haciendo silencio en Lisboa, escuchamos a los pescadores artesanales y escuchamos el sonido del mar a través de sus voces, que implora otra vez unión, trabajo conjunto, solidaridad y justicia social y ambiental. Yo quisiera terminar diciendo que no debemos dejar pasar la oportunidad, que vayamos adelante juntos, pero que tengamos la fortaleza de ver hacia atrás los pasos que hemos dado y cuando nuestro trabajo no ha dado los frutos que se esperaban. Y entonces recordemos las normas de conducta. Recordemos los principios del llamado a la acción de los pescadores de pequeña escala y recordemos las directrices voluntarias para la sostenibilidad de la pesca de pequeña escala, que deben de ser los que guíen nuestro camino hacia. Muchas gracias y mucha suerte.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Let's conclude the webinar now. So let's keep working together, but making sure that the principles of ethicality and respectfulness is taken care of and with utmost priority. Thank you so much for joining. And we also hope that you'll go through the rules of conduct document and other to that and make public statements in your social media and other platforms with regard to your adherence. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Good night.